It's been a long time since we talked, all the way back in Quebec at the go-kart area in the little back room. Right away, I reached out to you because we saw that CTR had passed 10 million units. I gotta ask, what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, it's pretty amazing. Looking back at when we were working on the game, kind of the expectations were to reach a few millions, but to reach 10 millions, that's pretty amazing. I have a few friends at Beanox, of course, because I'm not working at Beanox anymore, but I mean, they told me a little bit ahead of time that they were informed that we'd reached that milestone. I think it's pretty amazing. When you think about it, there's Mario Kart, of course, out there, the amazing game, and there's not a lot of games that come close to the quality of the experience of Mario Kart. So knowing that we reached 10 millions with CTR nitro-fueled, for me, was amazing. So it means that even though the game released in 2019, it's still running. People are still buying the game and still enjoying playing it. So that's pretty cool.
As time went on from like when the game initially launched and even beyond the initial Grand Prix, the game was adjusted and changed as support continued. On the back end of things, from what you were seeing, what were you learning as players were learning more and more? What were you tweaking and adding and adjusting, and why?
Well, there were plenty of things, but we're not, at the time I remember that the speed at which we could make changes was not as fast as I wished we could. So we had to sort of almost plan 1 month ahead of time based on the feedback we were getting, because the updates required a lot of planning and submitting. You know, when we were submitting a change, we had to have it ready even before we were reading the feedback from the community. So what would happen sometimes is if people were, making a suggestion or wanted something to be tweaked, sometimes it could only be done like the month later or even 2 months later, because by the time we get the feedback, by the time we were addressing it and the time we submitted, there was a period of time where the change would not happen. So we tried to be as fast as possible based on the feedback we were getting and the things we could potentially address. And so we planned ahead of time what we thought were going to be cool Grand Prix, or like things that would be cool when they were themed together. And in terms of like the feedback we were getting from the community, sometimes if a comment was made and we were like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea, we would plan for it at a later stage. A lot on our team were reading the comments, then we would address them if it was possible.
Now, there was a specific question and or suggestion that the community had at the time that I really wanted to ask Thomas about. And it was in regards to a specific game mechanic that came from Crash Nitro Kart, and that was the anti-gravity. Because of Crash Nitro Kart's content inclusion, whether it be the retrofitted tracks or even characters, the anti-gravity was a mechanic that was left out. So I asked Thomas, was the anti-gravity mechanic ever experimented with for nitro-fueled, or was it something that they knew from the get-go that wasn't going to be included in the game?
It's kind of interesting because I had played Nitro Kart, and of course I still preferred Crash Team Racing, but
sure,
I totally forgot that there was anti-grav segments. And when I started playing it, I was like, holy cow, the Crash Bandicoot franchise had done it before Mario Kart.
That's right, yes.
Because it became this big thing when you're playing Mario Kart, there's these cool anti-grav sections. And then I was like, oh my God, it was already in there. The question was early on from a design standpoint is this something that we want to support? To be honest, it was a very interesting creative decision to be made, because let's say we would have supported these segments. I felt like people would say, so Crash Team Racing has copied Mario Kart. Even if we were coming out and it existed before, there would still be a comparison made with Mario Kart, and then people would say, you know what? It just feels like they copied Mario Kart. And but also deciding to support anti-grav segments meant that we needed to support things like, the camera flipping around. I mean, it was not you don't just simply decide to make that happen, because from an engineering standpoint, the fact that it needed to be supported would require features that would have to be developed. Now, because the concept or the original mandate was to remaster Crash Team Racing, we believed that supporting the anti-grav segments was not necessary. I must say also, it was not kind of the best aspect of the racing of Crash Team Nitro Kart. So what we early on, as soon as we made the decision that what we needed to do was to adapt the track design to the Crash Team racing mechanic, we felt that people would still be happy to be jumping back into some of the track design from Crash Nitro Kart, but adapted to the original experience that people love. The decision was made quite early that we would incorporate most of the track elements, but then we would adapt it so that it would feel like a Crash Team racing experience.
Speaking of a Crash Team racing experience, nearly everybody at the time could experience nitro-fueled, whether you had a PlayStation, an Xbox, or even a Nintendo Switch. However, there was one platform that was missing, and that was the PC crowd. Crash Team Racing on PC has probably been the number one thing that's been asked since the game was even announced. There has been rumors of its development, from it being canceled, put on ice, delayed, you name it, we've heard it. Even now, 6 years later, people are still asking and hoping that there is some chance of a PC port coming for CTR nitro-fueled. Now, of course, Thomas couldn't comment on whether something is currently in the works, but during our interview, he finally revealed the truth behind whether or not Crash Team Racing nitro-fueled ever had a PC port in development.
So a lot on our team were reading the comments and we were extracting what we could address. Some things, sometimes we wouldn't, it's going to be probably one of your questions, like when is a PC port coming in? And there was never a plan to work on a PC version for Crash Team Racing.
Oh, okay.
That's an example of, I still see it cut through the comments. It's like, when are we going to get a PC version? And there was never time to work on a PC version, honestly.
I'll be honest, hearing that there was no plans to make a PC version for Crash Team Racing nitro-fueled was a little bit of a shock to me. So I followed up and asked very bluntly, why not?
If you're making a PC version, you need to have a dedicated team working on a PC version. So a good example is at Beanox, where, Beanox was and is still responsible for the PC version of Call of Duty. So there was a dedicated team working on that. So if you're looking at the original plan, the budget that we have for the project, there was no envelope available to actually have a separate dedicated team working on a PC version. There was a lot of security challenges around making sure that the game was secure, that no one could cheat, because when you're making a PC game, it's much easier for people to cheat. Also, I would probably argue that I'm not sure how many people would be playing a PC version. Of course, when you're thinking about like the games that you're making, you're thinking about reaching out to the audience. And so there's a cost related to developing a PC version. So you want to make sure that there's enough people who would want to play the game. And our community was less on PC than on console.
Right. So you're basically kind of suggesting about the loud minority. They might be loud, but the payoff isn't going to be as big as one might think.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.